My dear people of Southern Cameroons, fellow Ambazonians, today is Sunday, the 25th day of the month of November in the year 2018. I bring you weekend revolutionary salutes. My dear people, the wailing on the land is getting stronger and stronger. The level of desolation is growing. The degree of frustration is attaining unacceptable limits. And over and above all, fear has gripped the minds of many. This is especially marked by the sad events of the past few days that led to the deaths of some 29 of our young men, most of them farmers and people involved in other trades in the Bali local government area, under the burning of their corpses, specifically to conceal very strong allegations of the use of chemical weapons on those persons. And we all know that the use of chemical weapons in warfare follows strict regulations and most often is forbidden. I recall that when President Assad in Syria launched an onslaught against his own people, the President of the United States of America at the time, Barack Obama, mentioned that if there was any use of chemical weapon, it would mean the crossing of the red line. And that is exactly what Mr. Paul Biya has done. And because they feared that there could be autopsy to establish triumphantly that that is exactly the measure, the step that they took in this their desperate war against the people of Southern Cameroons in Bali, that decided to char the corpses after displaying the pictures on social media widely. These killings in the Bali local government area were preceded by mass killings of over 20 men in Dongamantung County, allegedly set up or betrayed by the Fulanis in that area to the B. And those killings were apparently carried out with false claims of massive theft and the rest. Again, prior to these events, the scorched earth policy that the terrorist soldiers from La République du Cameroon have pursued in southern Cameroon is still very much ongoing. And this time it was a turn of Abu village in Fundong local government area in Boyo County. They razed down so many houses to dust. They burnt along even the community hall, and 3 people were killed in that operation. But the situation in Abu did not just end with the burning down of houses, burning down of the community hall, and the charring of 3 people to death. It was also marked by what has now become traditional with forces loyal to Mr. Paul Biya looting. The forces looted along 15 big solar panels from the community hall in Abu before burning it down. And these panels were bought and provided by children of Abu resident in the diaspora to help their community to have electricity, because that community had long been abandoned by Mr. Paul Biya and his people, and they have been in darkness ever since independence to this day. And so when these soldiers carted away those 15 big panels, they shamelessly put them on display in Fundong as they went past, and right in Bamenda, they started looking for customers to buy. This is something that has been ongoing. This is a practice that has been decried over and over. We have pointed out a lot of the times that these soldiers have become looters, that they break into people's stores, they break into banks, they break into all sorts of establishments where they are sure they can get money, where they are sure they can get valuables that they will sell to make money. And in some cases, like we reported in Ndu local government area, even the divisional officer was involved, and they were caught on CCTV camera in a credit union establishment there, breaking into the safe and stealing money. I mentioned some time ago that they did same in Shisong, where they visited even the guest quarters, broke into all of the houses, they carried things, and even did that to an American volunteer. That too was reportedly caught on CCTV camera. We have seen a video of policemen in Kumbo, policemen of La République du Cameroun in Kumbo, confessing that they are suffering. They are in difficulties. They are unable to have food to eat because they have decided not to indulge in the same practice like others, breaking into shops, stealing money, stealing goods, stealing people's animals, and what have you. That is on camera. It is very strong evidence to confirm what has been reported on the ground over and over and over. Now, these incidents are not just coming up for nothing. These incidents are coming on because it is official policy at the level of Yaounde not only to kill as many of our young people as possible, destroying the future of Southern Cameroons, but also at the same time to impoverish the people as much as possible, to render them more and more vulnerable, and to make it impossible for us to cope with life or to ever survive, so that at the end of the day, we shall come crawling on our stomachs to surrender. It doesn't end there. Because of increasing international pressure, and because of Yaounde's inability to wrap up this war as quickly as they thought it was going to happen, they engaged a series of evil actions meant to bring the international community on their side and to see Southern Cameroonians as terrorists. I will not get mentioning the numerous incidents, including the kidnapping of school students here and there. Let me just go to the most recent one, which is the killing of the Kenyan priest, Reverend Father Cosmas, in Kembong. That is in the same spate of what I am talking about. And the killing of this priest, once it was carried out, the regime immediately moved to the next action, trying to paint Southern Cameroonians as terrorists. That is why the Minister of Defense and the Minister of Communication of that country quickly found in Eric Tato the scapegoat. I am so moved because I listened with a lot of pleasure. Our own Bishop Andrew Nkia of Mamfe, in a very factual interview on the BBC, presenting the facts as they happen without oiling them, without any form of decoration on those facts. Because La République du Cameroun has become master in distortion of facts, they believe that it could intimidate each and every one to submission and to silence so that they will continue to carry out those evil acts. But just like in the case of the US missionary Charles Wesco, there were people who saw the soldiers shoot randomly. There are videos of soldiers who were in the streets of Moyoka and Ekona shooting randomly on every building, busting buildings here and there. And that is the same act that they carried, which resulted to the death of the Kenyan priest. They were not fighting against anybody in particular. It was a random and, reckless shooting spree meant to get as many people as possible, both on target and even off target. This is a practice that has been going on. And I want to ask a number of questions here. Did Eric Tato order the killing of missionary Charles Wesco? Did Eric Tato order the killing of the Ghanaian pastor in Batibo? Did Eric Tato order the killing of Reverend Father Sop in Moyoka? Did Eric Tato order the killing of the seminarian in Bamising? Did Eric Tato order the alleged kidnapping of a Reverend Father as he went to pay some attention to internally displaced people in the forests? Let the République du Cameroun be more forthcoming. Let the Minister of Communication be more forthcoming. I think in La République du Cameroon's effort to not only bring the West on their side, but paint Ambazonians as terrorists, they have committed a number of acts, and the silence of the world gives the impression that it is an approval, that Mr. Paul Biya can go ahead killing anyone he cares because he will not be touched. This is why I'll ask this question. We saw with the killing of the Ghanaian priest, of the Ghanaian pastor in Batibo, there was even no apology offered to anyone. The Ghanaian government went silent. With the killing of the U.S. missionary Charles Wesco, we rather saw the U.S. State Department playing the apologist by indicating that missionary Charles Wesco was caught in a crossfire. But the other missionary was with him in the car, and other people who witnessed this event indicated clearly that there was no battle going on in that locality, and that killing was not only carried out by a soldier who was seen, who was visible, but it was clearly a targeted killing. Yet, the United States of America is yet to say anything. Now, with the death of Father Cosmas, they're also expecting the president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the Kenyan government to say nothing. Just like the Pope Francis, has remained very silent with a serious onslaught on the Catholic Church. These are worrying questions that deserve to be raised at this specific point in time, because they will not only help bring to mind the fact that there is some international conspiracy, which we have, of course, identified, but that we as a people will have to count very much on ourselves. We have to work very much together, and we'll have to understand that we are in an existential war. I've said this before, and I'm repeating it again here. All these acts that Mr. Paul Biya has carried out, marked by the refusal to let the meeting called by Cardinal Tumi to be held in Boya, indicate only very clearly that Mr. Paul Biya is not ready for any dialogue. Of course, no one is even anxious to talk dialogue now, but he's not ready even for any negotiation. He's not ready for anything that will mean giving and taking. His État-Major have assured him that they will win at war. We have heard indications that there have been security meetings where they have been told that they now have state-of-the-art equipment and are going to be able to wipe out Ambazonians within the next 2-3 weeks, and so that by the time Mr. Paul Biya makes his speech on December 31, he will be announcing the end of the war. And so, Ambazonians, Southern Cameroonians, will be subdued forever. I say this to tie it to the fact that the federalist perspective has generally not been because Mr. Paul Biya is anxious for any form of federalism, but as a distraction, as a means to continuously divide us. Let me bring you some evidence to that effect. We noticed that ever since the Federalists say they held their launch or their founding meeting in Bowie, in Maryland, in the United States of America, and prepared a communique, on that 27th of October, it was never released until just a few days ago. And why was that communique released only a few days ago? Because it had to be in sync with what the Parliament of La République du Cameroon is talking now, the actualization of the decentralization as enshrined in the 1996 Constitution, which was shelved. That is why the Federalist press release indicates very clearly, it talks about the 1996 Constitution, which enshrined decentralization, which was kept silent. And La République du Cameroon's parliament today is talking about the putting in place of regions in 2019. That is a clear indication of that collusion that exists between these two sides, which tells you clearly that even those who are preaching federalism are clearly aware that Mr. Paul Biya is not even thinking about any federalism, and that it is mainly and clearly a distraction. And this should make all of us to understand that while all this is going on, Mr. Biya is now engaged in using all sorts of even weapons that have been forbidden at war against us, the people of Southern Cameroons, the people of Ambazonia, because he wants to stem international pressure by summarizing this militarily. Because he tells himself that by the time the victory is won militarily, we will not be able to secure any gains. We will not be able to get any concessions. We will simply be subdued, and our situation will be worse than it was even other Nigeria before 1954 and before we got into the unholy union in 1961. This is a clear indication that this particular period in our struggle is a serious turning point. Serious turning point because it is a moment for us to collectively understand that as a people, we are nearing total destruction if we don't do what we are supposed to do to change the game on the ground. This is extremely important because, like you have seen on social media, and there are some people who are quick to say this is rubbish and this is rumor, they are already preparing seriously for fake surrenders of some so-called Amber boys with abuse left and right, who will come out and then denounce so-called misguided leaders based in the diaspora who have, pushed them to their early graves, and for that reason, they are surrendering and wanting to return to normal life. For those of you who will fall for that kind of game, go back and listen to the interview of Bishop Andrew Nkia of Mamfe. He made clear that he has used his good offices to convince people in Kembong to come out of the forests and stay back in the communities. But the people have just realized for themselves that it was a very dangerous mistake because the army remains unfortunately determined to wipe out every living soul that can have anything to say on southern Cameroon's soil. This tells you why Mr. Paul Biya will still go ahead to carry out the balkanization of the GCE board, because he knows that he is heading for a military victory, or yet perhaps he believes that he is heading for a military victory, and as such, all those measures that he knows in normal circumstances will not be swallowed must be passed now, so that by the end of his war, we get used to it. We get used to our new position of no longer just slaves, but a conquered people who should never ever lift their voice at any given moment, because you will be sent exactly to where you belong or to where you deserve to belong. And so he plans on the 31st of December to announce his fake peace. My dear people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, this litany of issues I have raised can tell a few people that this means that we have got to the end of the road. It can lead a few people to concluding that we have lost in the struggle. But let me tell you the contrary. Take note, first of all, that it always gets worse before it gets better. We appear to be on the downside today. We appear to be facing a lot of difficulties today. This same situation happened to La République du Cameroon, and it will happen again. We are at war. There are high moments and there are low moments. When Mr. Barack Obama took over as president of the United States of America with a seriously checkered economy, he also told Americans that it would get worse before it gets better. And indeed, it got worse. And then it finally did not only get better, it is translated into what we are seeing today, that the American economy is making huge gains and is progressing seriously. And that, the continuous posting of, record job opportunities justifies that. Why am I saying so? I'm saying so because those who are quick to think that it is finished should know that it is never finished until it is completely finished. And there is good news in the pipeline, because this moment has also been a moment of stock taking, of serious stock taking. I want to give you one simple, semi-strange example of how these things happen. To remind you that God our Father is still the commander-in-chief of this struggle. He is still seated on the front seat, a clear indication that defeat can never ever be the end game of this particular war. We are heading straight towards taking back our country, and nothing is going to stop us. We may face difficulties, by the way. No one ever expected that it was going to be a walk through the park. A lot of other leaders in this revolution have made this clear over and over to us. In the year 2000, and that was on a Saturday, during the Sydney Olympics, when Cameroon was going to play against Chile, and I got up from bed about 8:30 a.m. That match was programmed to begin at 10:30 a.m. And I told my family and friends that I just had a dream that Cameroon won that match by 2 goals to 1. But that it was a very serious battle. And that some of our players, I think two, went out on red card. And that one of our players scored against our team. And that was almost towards the end of the game. But that at the end of the day, we reversed the tides and we won. A lot of people laughed. But when the match started, this dream actually got actualized, including even commentary. And for those who had the opportunity to watch that match, it was a match full of tension. But I think some 9 minutes or so to the end of the game, a Cameroonian player scored against Cameroon. It was an own goal. And we were 1 goal down. But then it took less than 7 minutes for the tides to be reversed, and Cameroon ended up winning that match by 2 goals to 1. It tells you that a good lot of the battles that we lead in real life are first of all fought in the spirit before they are actualized in the physical. And so this is to tell you, remain confident, remain resolute, remain strong. Ambazonia is a reality. The southern Cameroons shall be free, and we shall sing loud and clear, free, free, free at last. We are free. They say, morning, you may enjoy it through the night, but in the morning will be joy. I like to announce here that a couple of things that are happening in the background are pointers to the effect that not only are we recalibrating, but we shall come back out very strong. The first I want to talk about here is about the birth of the Ambazonian military force, the AMF. That is a harbinger of good news. From what I've learned, over 90% of the commanders on Ground Zero have signed up into that initiative, which is a coming together of our self-defense forces to operate like one good body. What is the advantage of this? 1, there's going to be greater coordination. 2, we are going to have a serious limitation in waste of resources. 3, we are going to have a situation where these Amba boys now will have serious coordination among themselves, know each other very well, and will go out there after the hired ones, after the bandits who have infiltrated the ranks and are wreaking havoc on the population. And so this means that before long, the incidents of kidnappings, before long, the incident of ransom taking, before long, the incidents of outright theft, rape, and arrest that we've heard from those who infiltrated the rank and hired by agents of La République du Cameroun will be put out of activities. And the confidence that existed between the people of the southern Cameroons and their Amba boys, that they fondly call the boys, will be restored. And that synergy is indispensable as we approach the finishing line. That is a very good point, and I'm very delighted that God is doing it for us at this specific point in time. Again, I also talk about the birth of the Ambazonia Relief Fund. It's birthed by the SCNC, the APLM, which is the former SCYL of Dr. Ebenezer Akwanga, and the consortium. The Ambazonia Relief Fund is just a strategy, a unique account, bringing together these 3 organizations, and which will be open to the other organizations who may want to factor in. And this is just a strategy to collect funds in one place, have these funds transparently managed, have these funds used in a manner that they will be clearly accounted for, and give the possibility for the internally displaced people on Ground Zero, for the refugees on Ground 1, for those in other places, and for all the needy people to have better attention. Although this fund is birthed by these 3 organizations, as you're going to hear during a launch conference, this fund is going to be used for the entire struggle of the southern Cameroons. It is going to address the needs of all the organizations. It will not obey organizational discipline. It is meant to give us the opportunity to have trust once more in the management of resources in this struggle. And I think its birth, at the same time like the birth of the AMF, at the same time like a new rebound of democratic thought in our struggle, are harbingers of good news. They are pointers to the fact that the days ahead will not be as gloomy as people think, that the days ahead are rather going to be more interesting. When I talk about the rebirth of the spirit of democracy in our struggle, I'm talking about what I saw between Eric Tato, Tapang Ivor, Mark Barra, Brother Keyaka, and the rest of the others. That discussion, which led us to understanding that they have come to the realization that the most important thing that should happen among us is to debate ideas and let ideas clash, not individuals clashing. We should debate ideas. We should be able to bring points to rebut what is brought up by one another and not go about fighting ourselves. It's the spirit that existed among our forefathers from 1954 that they left Nigeria and got to Boya to 1961 when we got into this unholy union with La République du Cameroon. We saw people of opposing political parties. I say we saw because we have seen that through the books of history and seen that through the eyes of some of the people who lived at that time and who are still alive even today. How opposing leaders of political parties campaigned on the same soapbox, campaigned on the same rostrum, gave ideas that were contrary to the ideas of the others, and at the end of the day, shook hands, embraced, and left smiling because the battle was that of ideas and not a physical battle between the various individuals. It is that spirit that I wish and I hope is coming back in our ranks, so that the bad blood that has existed because people have developed enmity with others simply because their ideas were different from theirs, that the spirit will also help us to reassure the world that once we touch down in Boya, it will be a brand new functional democracy that will be born in southern Cameroons, in Ambazonia. Today, more than ever before, I have unflinching confidence in the success of this struggle. Today, more than ever before, I am still very convinced that the state of our revolution is good. Today, more than ever before, I still believe very strongly that we still have the potential to do exactly what has to be done to ensure our victory. Today, more than ever before, I am convinced that a lot of the people who are standing on the fence have seen for themselves today that federalism has no future, that staying under the unitary state with La République du Cameroon is a death sentence, and that pulling together to work together to secure a homeland not only for ourselves, but for future generations of Southern Cameroonians, or future generations of Ambazonians, is the only way forward. May the Holy Spirit of God continue to strengthen us more and more as we close ranks to ensure that the days coming ahead will be the days that remind La République du Cameroon that it is never over until it is really over. God be with us.